and there was a former Navy SEAL. It was one of those, you're all going to die if you train past 3 yards.
Did he flex? Did he?
Yeah.
Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Podcast US, one of the world's biggest shooting programs, as we like to say. I'm your host, Brent Wheat, joined by my, I always got a term, but I'm just going to call him my co-host this week, or my co-host always, Babble, Roy Huntington. Hi, Roy.
I think unparalleled co-host.
Oh, that's a good one.
That'd be okay, or his immenseness, you know.
Yeah. Well, let's move beyond it. Oh, but wait, there's more. We need to acknowledge our great sponsor. Here's a quick word from our friends at HoloSun. When performance matters, shooters trust HoloSun. From law enforcement officers and military professionals to competitive shooters, hunters, and everyday firearms enthusiasts, HoloSun builds optics for people who demand reliability when it counts. Whether you're looking for a red dot sight, magnifier, laser, or weapon light, HoloSun delivers the durability, clarity, and precision you need on the range or in the field. Their products are proven through real-world use and backed by a commitment to push optic technology forward. When you're ready to upgrade your gear, learn more at holosun.com. Okay, Roy, let's jump into this. We've kind of talked about this topic sometimes in the past, but we're going to focus on it today. And I like the idea. We kind of came up with a catchy title here of one ridiculously easy way to make your handgun shooting better. And people like that. Okay, what's the quick, simple way? What pill can I take or piece of equipment can I buy and my shooting will be better? Well, it's not quite that, but it's almost that simple. And that's just the idea of move your target back. And we're not talking from 7 to 10 or 15. We're talking go back to 100. And I know we've talked about that. We've touched on it many times, but we're going to really focus on it today. So, Roy, moving your target back, we're both firm believers in it. We've done it a lot, but when you're especially when you're training somebody, why do you tell them move their target back and do the look that you get when you tell them we're going to shoot at 100?
I know. Yeah, they're always like, "What?" Yeah. What prompted this again? I mean, because I know we've covered this topic several times, but we covered this topic several times because it's important.
Yeah.
And I think, and there's a lot of new viewers all the time and listeners. And so, they may not have heard the first once or twice that we've done this. And I think it's good to kind of, as we used to say, beat it into you a little bit and convince you to go out to the range and say, you know what? All right, I'll try it. Those guys keep saying this. All right, let me see. But the other day I was shooting a 22 Volkwarts Black Mamba at 100 yards with iron sights, and it shot a 3-inch group. Okay. And when I was finished for the day, I had rolled my target back up, and it was maybe 5 yards away or say 8 yards away. And I still had a loaded magazine. And so I loaded up the gun and I aimed at the target and I shot a bullet hole in it. And then I proceeded to put the rest of the magazine in pretty much the same bullet hole. Right? So I'm not bragging on myself there, but I'm telling you absolutely positively, I had just spent an hour and a half sight picture, breath control, trigger squeeze, doing the best I could at 100 yards. And when I applied that same thing at this distance, it was amazing how easy it was. Yeah. And I didn't go shoot, wait, pause, breathe. I went bang through the first round out and then bang, 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 and they all went in the same hole. Yeah, okay, I was 8 yards away or something. But I think until you try it, until you do it, because if you're shooting at 3 yards at the range, you just did a mag dump and you've got a paper plate sized group, well, you haven't learned anything, right?
Yeah.
And arguably, you probably would have defended yourself successfully at that distance, probably,
Yeah.
But you haven't learned anything. How was your trigger press? Did you have a sight picture? What was your breathing like? Were you pausing between shots? Were you not? What were you doing? Yeah. And so when you push it out a little bit, that forces you to slow down. And then that gives you the time to concentrate on all these things we're talking about.
Yep. And you told me a story right before we got started that we harsh on YouTube a lot. YouTube can be a great source of information, and there are some gun folks that are doing a tremendous job. I hope we're in that category, or at least getting there. But there's also a lot of dreck, and I saw a comment the other day talking about good presentation or entertaining presentation doesn't equal good information. And I think we lose sight of that a lot. But you were talking about a video you saw the other day in some of the comments, and it kind of restored my faith in humanity just a little bit.
Sure. Was that the SEAL guy?
Yeah.
Is that the one? Yeah. It came up in my feed. I mean, I spent a lot of time on YouTube, obviously, taking care of our channel, answering comments and stuff. And so when you open it, a lot of times it pops up. And there was a former Navy SEAL. I guess he's a famous name. I didn't recognize him. And it was one of those, you're all gonna die, if you train past 3 yards.
Did he flex? Did he?
Yeah, I mean, we're all gonna die if you. And I thought, well, what do you mean you're gonna die if you train, past 3 yards? And basically, what he said was that if you train beyond 3 to 5 yards and you shoot more than 20 rounds when you go to the range, this is a complete waste of your time. Because, 95% of shootings are within 3 to 5 yards and all that other kind of stuff. And I don't really disagree with the 20 round concept. I mean, unless you're training a specific thing like we're doing entries today, which I don't ever train like that anymore. But if you're just relaxing, going to the range, sight picture, trigger squeeze, do that kind of stuff, 20 good rounds beats 10 mag dumps anytime. So I don't disagree with that. But as far as if you train for shooting distance more than 3 to 5 yards, you're wasting your time. No, absolutely not. He is absolutely wrong about that. And especially because what do SEALs teams do? That not only do they shoot tens of thousands of rounds individually, but I know for a fact, because we used to actually train with a little bit in San Diego, because we used their indoor range when our range was broken. And they shoot 50 yards with their duty pistols all the time. All the time and farther. Yeah. Right. So, and why would they do that? Because they may need to someday. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
But I think go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I had to guess, the famous YouTube instructor probably sucked at distance shooting, and that's why he was so adamant about, you don't need to do that. Well, maybe you can't, buddy, but that's flying against pretty much conventional wisdom from anybody I would consider a reputable trainer.
Well, what warmed my heart, as it were, because I literally couldn't last more than about a minute or two watching this. I was just appalled.
Yeah.
And for someone who's a novice, they're maybe thinking, oh, God, I better listen to this,
Former SEAL.
I know, former SEAL, whatever. Yeah. But so I went to the comments. I wanted to see, are they eating this candy? Right. And no, absolutely not. I mean, it was like 100% of them were saying like, well, I don't know who he thinks he is, but he's full of complete, caca. Yeah. And he said, I shoot at 3 yards, 5 yards, 8 yards, 10, 15, 25. And if I am at a facility where I could shoot longer with my handgun, I do. And time after time after time, people were saying that. But what really got my attention was the fact that there are many people who understand exactly what we're saying. And what they said was, if I take 6 or 8 or 10 very careful shots at 25 yards, then I never miss at 3 to 5 yards.
Yeah. Yep.
And so they said he said, the final thing I do when I leave the range, this one guy said, he says, I take 6 very careful shots at 25 yards. And, he said things like, it recenters me. It makes me remember sight picture, trigger squeeze, focuses on that. And so, there you go.
Well, I had a former instructor in sniper school, and his mantra was, if the bad guy can shoot 300, you better be able to shoot 500. And, the recent Idaho Falls, In-N-Out Burger, I don't know what the distances are. We're still waiting to get like a definitive after action, but it sure didn't look like 3 to 5 when that chap pulled out his silenced, what was it?
FN, I think.
FN, yeah.
FN? Yeah.
It was more than 3 to 5, and
Yeah.
It got the bad guy's attention. So,
Well, and I saw an interview with him, and he's not a tactard idiot at all.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he's a full-time caregiver to his brother. He said he felt he needed to protect his brother. So he got what is arguably a substantial platform, right?
Yep.
And has learned how to shoot it. And he said they go to the desert often or and so he takes that, they practice a little bit out there. And, but if you notice, he had a great stance. He had the gun, brought up to his eyes. He wasn't crouched all down, and that's where training pays off. I'm sure if he shoots in the desert 25 yards, that he felt right at home.
Yeah.
Taking this 10 or 15 or 20 yard shot,
Exactly. Well, let's get into, I did make a list of some of the things that, distance shooting helps you with, and I'll just kind of run down them and then jump in, Roy, wherever you want, or we can discuss them individually. But basically, shooting at distance really magnifies the small errors. When you're up close, you can really do a lot of bad things wrong and still get a reasonable pattern on a target. But once you start going back, the angle stays the same, but the distance between shots gets a lot bigger. So it exposes your weaknesses, things like your trigger control. If you got bad trigger control, that becomes glaringly obvious. Oh, we're getting ready to have a bad storm because my weather radio just went off. If you hear that,
well, laugh in its face.
Yeah, that's funny. Of all, I shut off my phone and all that stuff. I never thought about the weather radio. So let's hold that thought while this thing does its thing, and then we'll jump back in. Okay, Roy, we're back. We're not facing imminent twisters at this point. I think we're going to have some weather later. But, it's funny. Like I said, I never thought of unplugging the weather radio because it just doesn't go off that much. So anyway, we were talking about the some of the reasons that you want to move that target back. So we've talked about your trigger control. If you got bad trigger control, it's going to show up. If you're bad at sight alignment, especially with iron sights, that's going to be a problem. Flinch, or anticipation, where you're actually starting to move the gun before you actually set off the round, that's going to show up. And basically what distance shooting does, it makes you slow down and execute. Nobody's going to do a mag dump at 100 unless you like shotgunning the back of the backstop. So it makes you slow down, think about what you're doing. So that's kind of the list, Roy. Your thoughts on that bunch of stuff there?
Well, one thing I want to make perfectly clear, as they say, it's not this or that.
Right.
In other words, people say, oh, well, if you're shooting distance and you're not practicing up close, or if you're practicing up close, you're not learning to shoot distance. Well, you're right. So that's why we do both,
Yep.
And I don't understand why there's this zealous group of hate mongers, that if you show up to the range and you pull your precision target pistol out and you put a pair of binoculars on the desk next to you and you shoot slowly at 25 yards and they look at you and sneer and say, well, that's not going to do you any good in a toe-to-toe shootout.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if that's what you think, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the point here is that be that guy that does that long distance shooting and does the close-in shooting, because you have different things. You might be practicing safe multiple step draws, engaging 1 shot, 2 shots, 3 shots, 4 shots, do your split times, do whatever it is that you like to do to practice, because that's good. Because then if something happens and you're walking out to your car and you're confronted and you have to draw and engage close, perfect. You've been practicing that, right?
Yep.
But I'm here to tell you, if you don't also push the distance out, you will not do as well up close. And so it just because, I've been there before. And, I once had my double action revolver, the same one I used to shoot PPC with. It was my duty gun, 6-inch Model 19. And I drew that and I aimed very carefully at a guy at 25 yards. And I had a position of cover. and a secure rest. And there were other people who were talking to this guy. We were patrol cops, right? So it was long before SWAT responded to everything. This guy's holding a little girl. She's got a knife. So these guys are talking to him over there. And I had a very precise sight picture on him, and gee, wasn't I glad I had 4 years of PPC shooting under my belt, and if I'd been that guy that had only trained at 3 to 5 yards doing mag dumps, well, I would have been a really useless addition to that puzzle.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, well, yeah. I'm going to answer your question. The reason that people get bent out of shape, we typically make fun of and really get bent about the stuff that we don't do well, and we know we don't do well. And I think that's some of it. Or I think that's a lot of it. Just that whole idea that, you don't need to do that. Well, what he's really saying is, I can't do that. Or it's a shotgun pattern down at 100.
Yeah, often, I think. Well, and I mean, it's the people who, if you don't have anything good to say, then it's usually personal attacks, right? So that's where if some guy is there all tacked up and you're shooting a distance and he's like sneers at you or something, well, he's name calling you, but it's because he doesn't have a platform to speak from. He really doesn't.
Yep.
And I think the wise thing to do would be that you look at this guy that looks like me or looks like you, and we're shooting a single action Ruger Blackhawk at 30 yards.
Yeah.
The wise thing to do is to say, tell me, why are you doing that? How do you do that? What, could you show me something that I should learn?
Yep.
Yep. And it works in the other way. And I've done it. I mean, heck, if you see some hot shot, shooting a weekend match that's really nailing things, I mean, it's like, hey, how you doing? I'm Roy Huntington. Yeah. I noticed you are really drawing smoothly. How do you show me how you do that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why so many shooters are adversarial like that.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to hit another point that you made was, I think one of the keys to my success in life, and I think I've been relatively successful, is even at a young age, I realized, why reinvent the wheel? I'm the guy that if I see Roy Huntington shooting well, I'm going to go up and listen to what he's got to say and probably try to emulate everything he's doing.
Yeah,
and
why not?
Why not? I open up, I'm a sponge, and I'm going to grab anything and everything I can from people that are successful, not just in shooting, business or playing the piano, whatever it is, but do what successful people do, and there's a pretty good chance you'll be successful too.
It's funny how that works. I think there's a couple of things for people to remember, a little life experience that you get when you're 72. And that is that those people around you are actually not too concerned with you at all.
Yeah.
In other words, they really don't care if you do the fastest mag dump in the world. As a matter of fact, they're probably a little irritated at all the noise you're making and the fact that your brass is
exactly
flying over onto their thing, and you're high-fiving behind the thing with all that kind of stuff. It's like, why don't you just kind of mind your own business and focus on your own stuff and get better at what you're doing, and less thought about what you think people are thinking about you, because they're not thinking about you. Okay. Yeah. And so concentrate on your own sort of list of things you need to do to get where you want to be. And so if you want to be the all-around competent shooter, well, then you need to practice the all-around everything to get there. You could probably definitely be the fastest, most accurate, blazing guy in the world shooting 3 to 5 yards. But if you're confronted with a 30-yard shot, this is going to be new to you, And so if the only thing you do is 25 or 30 yards slow fire shooting, well, then if you have to move fast and accurately up close, then you will not have trained for that, right? So gosh, do both. I mean, why? I don't understand why they throw rocks like that SEAL guy the other day. You're wasting your time if you're doing that. No, you're not wasting your time.
Yeah.
I noticed something. Your analogy with the long distance amplifying your shortcomings is not too long ago, I was in my shop and I was trying to use a really tiny, fine diamond file on a sear. And I just couldn't quite see it right with my visor. So I have a dissecting microscope. So of course I do, right? Yeah. And so it's the kind you lean down, it's 2 eyepieces, right? So it's very comfortable. Well, so I broke that out. I put it on my bench. I focused it up. I put my hammer that I was working the sear on underneath it. I brought my fingers in with the fine diamond file, and I could see the tremble, you know, and it was like, well, that's interesting because I sure didn't see it when I was, just looking with my glasses. And so I braced my finger, because it might have microscopic front. None of us can hold our hands perfectly still, right? And if you magnify that, you'll see what you're doing. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. But that's exactly what you're talking about, because your coarse trigger pull at 5 yards is one thing, but that same coarse trigger pull at 25 yards is entirely different. And so learn your limitations and learn your strengths.
Yep.
You may have excellent eyesight. Well, good. Build on that. Work on your trigger press now. Or you may have like an excellent trigger press. Well, now work on your sight picture or get better shooting glasses if you need those. But it's just, I don't know. Don't fight with it. Enjoy it. And 99% of this is for us to have fun. So
what?
Yeah, imagine that, right?
Well, I haven't said it in probably a couple of months. Is gun and fun are only one letter apart. So
it's funny how that works. So I will say that one more thing is I don't think we really need to beat this into the dirt, but
agreed.
I think I just want to encourage people to keep an open mind. And like Clint says, an open mind is like an open parachute, right? And rather than wasting your time focusing on what's everyone else is doing wrong, why don't you focus on what are they doing right? And how does that apply to you?
Yep. And I talk a lot about, I consider long distance with a handgun 100 yards or beyond. But if you can only go 25 yards and you're barely hitting the target, start there, work it. Or maybe your range doesn't let you go past 25, but at least you're still getting some of that benefit. You certainly, when you can, go to 50 yards. If you can do 100 or more, that's great too. If you're really good and you can put a small group like a Roy Huntington, 3 inches at 100 yards, well, let's see 150. Now that throws a whole different level of complexity in there. So always push yourself, always train, always get better. So Roy, before we go though, I got to ask you, what's your longest shot with a handgun?
Well, that's just the longest shot with a handgun would be about 600 yards with a Thompson Center Contender.
I meant you personally.
Well, that was me personally.
Good Lord.
It's long distance shooting. It's a great thing and it amplifies everything we've talked about, but it was I think it might have been a 6.5 caliber. It was Mark Hampton. I was at his ranch, and he's got out to 600 yards, and we were shooting steel plates, and it was like shooting a rifle. But I would say probably my proudest shot was a 2-inch J-frame revolver, and we were pretty consistently hitting torso-sized steel plates at gun sight.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not just me. There were other people that were, like we senior gun writer guys that have been around for a long time. But yeah, it was like more often than not, it was like bang, ting, and it was so satisfying. It was great fun.
Yeah.
Now people will argue and say, well, that's stupid. You would never have to do that. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Probably never, ever, ever. But you know what? If I ever did have to do that,
Exactly.
I would have done that. Yeah,
exactly. So let us know what you think. I hope I know what the audience will say. You can leave us a comment down there on YouTube if you're watching, or if you're listening, you can reach out, editor@gunspodcast.us, and let us know what you think. And, just to head off some of those comments for folks that didn't listen or didn't watch the whole thing, don't forget what we're saying is it's not the most critical defense skill. This is more of a shooting skill. But like Roy said, if you ever do need to take the shot, you probably need to do it. And you probably need to do it well. So you're not out anything. And I was going to add one thing. If an instructor, if you would ask an instructor, well, I never shoot past 50. Well, could you show me what it's like at 100? If they won't produce on demand, that tells you something right there. So, again, I think people that give you sour grapes are typically people that can't do it. So that's something to keep in mind going forward. So anyway, before we get out of here, of course, go to gunsmagazine.com where you can find all kinds of great stuff, including writing from both of us. And they've got newsletters. Make sure you sign up for those, whether it's Revolver Wednesdays, this podcast. There's all kinds of stuff that you can get all that great gun goodness delivered directly to your inbox. So, of course, please stop by podcast.us. That's our website, and lots of fun and interesting stuff there, plus links to all of our podcast episodes. So Guns Podcast US and gunsmagazine.com. So anyway, Roy, any final parting words of wisdom from, I can't remember the title you gave yourself, but any parting words of wisdom?
Unparalleled? I can't remember either.
Maybe. We'll have to go back and look at the tape.
Unrepentant,
that's for sure.
No, just do it. Have fun. Get out there. Don't believe everything you see on YouTube, including what we say.
Yeah.
I mean, verify. If you say, they're a bunch of, that's full of baloney. Well, good. We'll go test it, see if we're right or not. So
exactly.
All right.
Well, great. We're going to get out of here. I'm apparently going to go to my storm shelter. On behalf of the illustrious Roy Huntington, of course, I am Brent Wheat, and reminding you as always, now it's time to get out there and get shooting.